Hey, Michelle, welcome.
Hello. Hi.
Yo, how's it going?
It's going pretty well. How are you today?
Also good, also good. Did you move back yet, or you're still
No,
in
I'm still in Michigan and I'm waiting for a part for my car. So I haven't had my car for over a month, but yeah, doing good.
you riding a bike, getting in good exercise?
Um, I've been walking about 3 miles a day down to my friend's house who has internet so I can do Zoom things. And then my parents have a stationary bike, but they live along a highway. So
Oh,
it's kind of interesting walking. So once I get off the highway and can get into the farm roads, it's a little better. So yeah,
mhm.
been keeping busy. Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, good. Well, I'm glad you're happy and celebrating independence. You
Oh
know,
yes, big
we talked
time.
about freedom before. Yeah,
Yeah.
hello. Hey, Zabine, I see you here. I can't see your video yet or hear you. Oh, there you are. Hi.
Right.
Yeah, your internet on the other side of the room, we discovered. You're muted, Zabine. I can't quite hear you yet. Can you unmute?
I saw your email right now, so I wasn't able to calculate the time. I just thought, let me see what this is about. We're on right
Perfect.
now.
Yeah, that's perfect. So yeah, we've been meeting every week. We have about 12 people registered to come today. Sometimes they like to get the replay though, but that just
Okay.
means more time for you guys. But sometimes people trickle in. So welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're both here. I'm welcoming the rest of the folks who are going to pop in. See, there's more people coming in as we speak. So that's exciting. Yeah, we've been meeting every week. I think the Zoom to YouTube is better than the Facebook Live. It's been working better for me because I don't know, I love Facebook, but then, they make it tough for us to get back to the goods. So thanks for being here and taking that extra step to join in through Zoom. That means that we can see each other and talk, which is great. And that's what we've been doing the last couple of weeks. I know, Michelle, you've been here, so that's been fun. And who just joined? 1-865-244-9059. I'd love to know who you are. Tell us your name and come on camera so we can connect with you. Who's there?
Hello. Hello, am I still on mute or can you hear me?
I can hear you. Who are you?
Okay, my name is Pat.
Hi, Pat. It's nice to have you.
Yes, thank you. I've been on one of your Zoom meetings before, and I apologize, but I'm not in front of a computer, but I'm on the phone today.
Okay, perfect. Well, I just changed your name so I can call you by your name instead of your number.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome to. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you were here before. You're welcome to participate. We're going to get into some hot seating here in a minute, which is great. So please feel free to jump in anytime, Pat. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So we've been meeting weekly, which I think has been super fun. It's been fun for me. I'm gonna just be honest. I hope it's fun for you because it's been super fun for me. And we've been talking about, body work and how to be effective practitioners and stumbling blocks around pain and troubleshooting client work and talking about specifics around anatomy and where to fill in the gaps. And all of that's open for discussion and anything else that's on your mind. My purpose for being here is to connect with you so that you know that I'm here and so that I can support you because that makes me happy. So it's kind of a win-win if you get support and I get to support. So that's really what we're here for. There's no other agenda. And just before we dive into the questions that you have, so if you haven't yet formulated your question, formulate your question. What do you have? What do you need? What's going on for you? How can I support you? Sometimes when we have a mentor that we can really just bounce an idea off of, it makes a world of difference because you're all entrepreneurs, you're all creative. That's part of being an entrepreneur. You must be creative to think that you can actually create a living for yourself, right? So creativity comes with it. But then we get burdened sometimes around the weight of being an entrepreneur, and that can squelch our creativity. So when we can have connection like this, where we can talk to like minds and talk to a mentor and really get, a straight line towards our next great step, it can really open up a whole new idea that can really send you running. And so if that happens for you, great. That means it was a success for your time here, which is amazing. And thank you for the commitment that you make to continue to show up for your own learning, because that means that you're doing really good work in the world, and I'm happy and proud to be your colleague. So thanks for that. Hi to whoever just came in, number 140-346-35535. Again, another phone. Tell us who you are so we can welcome you warmly. If you're just coming in, that's great. I want to just start with kind of on the topic that I was just mentioning, actually. It was coming to mind for me. I've been in a lot of training meetings this week, talking to practitioners, and there seems to be this idea that, you know, there's going to be, well, there's a couple ideas. One is that there's going to be one more class that you take that's going to be the difference between where you're stumbling now, if you are, or what you're searching for now, and where the, like, you know, the golden chalice is going to be. And I hate to break it to you guys, that's not going to happen. I have an entire wall of certificates. I've been in continuing education for 30 years, and it's amazing. All of my knowledge has accrued. I love that. And not one of them was like the silver bullet. I think the silver bullet, though, is within you. And that's really what I want to share with you today as a concept. Please hear me saying that absolutely continuing education is important. It absolutely is. We've all chosen the body as our muse, which means it's an endless topic. You've heard me say that. You will continue to hear me say that till I run out of breath. Hi, Madeline. I'm glad you're here. And when we're continuing to study, again, we can get into this mind space that there's one class or one technique that's going to be the answer for everybody. And that's not true, because every single body has its own story. The way, though, to piece all those continuing education components together is, I think, a formula. So, you know, I love formulas. I think it's a formula that if you add them all up in this order, then every bit of continuing education you take will be really valuable. So here's the order. Does that make sense, by the way? Are you thinking like, yeah, or are you like, I don't know, Gina, tell me what you're talking about. I don't know. Okay. So here's what I think the formula is. This is what I've seen work, actually. We must, if we're working with the body, especially if we're working navigating pain and injury, especially, but not only, we must, if we're movement or manual practitioners, be steeped in anatomy and physiology. And I mean steeped. And I don't mean like green tea where you leave it in for 2 minutes and you pull it back out. I mean like espresso coffee beans steeped. Because it is this really complex machine that we're navigating. And especially when we're navigating it through pain and injury, it's a complex machine that has a complexity added. So you can't just do a breeze over. And with due respect, I also have yoga teacher training in my background. Some of you know that. 20 hours is not enough anatomy to be a movement expert. It's just not. Personal training, you guys have less, right? I went through personal training certification. I never worked on the floor as a personal trainer, but I realized that I knew nothing about how to put together a workout routine. I went after that and got, you know, certified in kettlebells and things like that. Those tests were also super hard. Does kettlebells mean that that's the answer for everybody? No, which is my point. All of those extra skills and tools, whatever industry you're in right now, add to the mix. And so you need all of them. Same thing with massage therapy. I'm a massage therapist as well. That's how I started. We have a shit ton of muscle knowledge, like more hours than most of the movement and manual practitioners. Not all, but most. And yet massage therapists don't know a thing about movement. They really struggle, right? And I don't mean it like negatively. Again, I'm a massage therapist and a movement practitioner. I'm all the things. So I recognize like where our gaps are. My point is there's gaps. So we must be steeped in anatomy and physiology if we want to be expert level, making a good living and making a difference. And if we intend on working with pain and injury, it's mandatory. It's not even up for discussion point. It's like mandatory. So steeped in A&P is step one in this formula. Step two is you must also be steeped in functional anatomy and physiology. So as I just mentioned, massage therapists know a ton about muscles and all the origins and all the insertions. But function, it's a different story. Once you're a yogi or a movement professional, you might know function, but you might not know the anatomy behind that function. So then do you really know the function? I would beg to, you know, converse about that. So steeped in A&P, steeped in functional A&P, meaning how things work and how they work optimally. And then what is alignment, right? Alignment isn't just good posture. Alignment is when I have my structure aligned in a way so the function can function, what is the anatomy that's making that happen? So you see, we just pieced all three of those together. The A and P, the function, and the alignment. We talked last week in our hot seating training that without alignment, you can't get full strength. Without alignment, you can't get full function. It matters. So yogis like to talk about alignment like what a pose looks like. I beg to differ about alignment purposes. Alignment is really about the alignment of the structure, which means you got to know the structure and the function to be able to bring somebody back to where that is if they're in pain and experiencing injury, right? Then once you have that, once you have your steep knowledge of anatomy and functional anatomy, and you understand what alignment of the structure is in an optimal form, the way it's designed, then you start accruing the tools, right? That's when we go into continuing education. We start getting tools and methods and manual work and movement work and all the things, right? We get all those tools. If you're working then with pain and injury or restriction of function, then we need to have tools to discern what's wrong, right? So sometimes what we do is we have all these tools that let us help someone that doesn't have any issues. And, you know, by goodness, wouldn't that be great if we all had that? But most of the time people come to you with some sort of restriction, some sort of history, scar tissue, old injuries, current pain, limitations, belief about limitations, like all the things, right? So we have to have tools to be able to discern what's really wrong when they come to us with these restrictions and limitations. That's a different tool set. Knowing what's wrong is a different tool set than having tools to get people to function well. It's just a different tool set that has to be included in your toolbox, in your pun intended, I guess, but in your repertoire that must be included. And then we have to have the technique and the method and the modality to return them back to what's optimal, right? We have to return them back to how we know they're designed. If we don't know how they're designed, step 1 and 2, there's nothing to return them to. We're taking them back into error. And if we have the tools about how to have them function well, but we don't have the tools to discern when something's upset or wrong or imbalanced or misfunctioning, then we can't really help them if they have a restriction. We're just kind of like, and that's when we modify. Nothing wrong with modifying, by the way, it prevents more pain. So then it brings us back to, this is a rhetorical question. What's your intention? When you work with a client, what's your intention? Is it to work with people that can function well and only well, and then send them on their way when they're wounded and bring them back when they're ready? There's nothing wrong with that, but you must be clear. If you really want to work with people in pain and injury, you got to be steeped in these things and not pretend, right? Because then we're not helping. We might hurt, and we don't want to do that. We never want to hurt. I know none of you ever want to hurt. So, you know, we just like take a moment, like, what do you really want? What do you really want? There's nothing wrong with what you want. You're not limiting yourself if you're being honest about what you want. Actually, you're being generous. If you know what you want and you're generous about that, you can absolutely help and support and be in service. That's cool. If you're kind of muddy and kind of cloudy, your clients are kind of muddy and kind of cloudy about what they can expect, and then they're also kind of cloudy about what they offer you, and then nobody's really making any effect, right? So getting clear on what you want and then walking your way through this formula and stopping at the part where it's pain and injury is still okay. But I still think we need to be steeped in anatomy, functional anatomy, alignment, and the tools to do what we want to do with that. Is that resonating with you guys? Is that landing as realistic? Yeah, good. Okay, awesome. Sometimes we're like, oh God, that means we have so much more work to do. That's okay, because there's tons of training out there. And I did not mention this last week, and I meant to, and someone emailed me afterwards. So I want to just make sure, awesome, Madeline, thanks for the thumbs up. I also just want to make sure that I'm super transparent and let you guys know that my training program, my mastery program, is for practitioners who want to do exactly this. That's how this is my formula, because this is the formula. So I steep them in anatomy and functional anatomy, give them a ton of tools to recognize when something's off so that they know when it's off. Then give them my method of working to get people out of pain. I literally teach you how I work clinically. And then figure out for you what you want on your path. So there's a professional development piece of it too. That's a year-long program. It's pretty crammed actually for a year. It should be longer, but just in the interest of having a bookend of a year. We do it in a year, and I have enrollment once a year only. And that's because we all start at the same place and we all end at the same place. And I'm there with you live for most of it. So that enrollment is starting August 1st. And so I want to make sure I was not remiss in letting you know that that's coming up. If that's ringing bells to you, if this formula is really speaking to you, that's my formula. So come and let me pour into you. Let me know if you have more questions about that, or if you are interested in learning more about that. I would be happy to share that with you. And yeah, so that's coming up. All right. So we have more people joining. Yay, awesome. Okay, so over to you now. What's happening for you today? What can I support you around? Who has a question that you would like to have addressed one-on-one? Anybody? Who wants to go first? Michelle, is there your hand up? No? Hi, Joan. I'm happy you're here. You can come on video or unmute at any time. Michelle, was that a question? Was that your hand up?
I don't know if you can hear me okay. My internet says it's being unstable. Can you hear?
I understand. Yeah, I absolutely can hear you. Now I understand why there was a delay. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, it was kind of fuzzy. Here's a question. And this is just from one of my cousins. She's really attached to her diagnosis of degenerative disc, L5 and S1, and she's tried physical therapy before. It hasn't helped, so this is her third physical therapy place. I've encouraged her to, to do the stretches and the exercises that they give her at home. So I guess anything you could speak kind of on that topic of, like, I don't want her to get fixated on it. So she feels like she can't be part of the process, or that it can change. And I've tried to tell her, yes, it may be degenerative, but there's things you can do that can prolong it going downhill, prolong your health from things going downhill. But we haven't worked together. She's resistant to try massage with me. So I just, I don't know. I'd love to tell her maybe some things she could do, but it's interesting because we're just now having a relationship where in the past we haven't gotten along. So just something that came up yesterday, and thought I'd ask you about it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your vulnerability and bringing that to the table for sure. And I'm delighted that you would trust me to give you any input on that, because it sounds like it's delicate and it's meaningful to you. Yeah. So I heard a couple things when you were sharing, and I'm sorry, but this is in my eye. So I heard a couple things while you were sharing. And the first thing I heard was the last thing you said, or the loudest thing I heard was the last thing you said. And that is that in the past, your relationship hasn't been as warm and connected as you wanted it to be. And it's coming back around now to be something more. And so that's brave of both of you. And that's awesome. And hi, Christina, I'm glad you're here. And when we are rebuilding a connection with someone, there needs to be a window of time where trust can be restored. And it doesn't mean that it has to be years and years. It could be 5 minutes, or it could be 5 months, or it could be 5 days or 5 hours. It doesn't have to be forever. But the point is that we want to stay in the step that we're in. And if you recognize that trust needs to be built, that must be first. Before we ever start giving someone opinions, advice, corrective work, etc., right? Because if they don't trust you, they're not going to hear a word you say. You could give them exactly the answer that they need. They're not going to hear you. It's not going to hear you. So really, restoring that trust between the two of you is a therapeutic corrective approach. And there's no wasted time there. And I would say that that's true for any client, right? Like typically we don't have fractured relationships with clients, but friends and relatives, I get it, we can. But even with a client, we still have to establish trust with them. we have to establish trust immediately with them, like from the moment they make their appointment, or they're coming in with their arms folded across their chest, even metaphorically, and you're not going to give them any information that they want to hear, right? So trust always has to be the first step. And so I trust you to build that trust with her. And when that happens, then the next thing I heard you say that is really important, and we talk about this, actually, we do talk about this at length in my mastery program, that it is not in our scope to diagnose. And when I first learned that as a practitioner, it kind of pissed me off. I was like, wait a minute, you're going to give me a medical license and not let me diagnose? What the hell? Like, what kind of mixed messages is that? And I actually saw huge value in that, in the turnaround, in the 180, right? The turnaround, the positive of that is, if I can't diagnose you, we're not dealing with anything that's permanent.
Yeah.
Which means there's all kinds of possibility ahead of us in your future. And you're going to allow me to usher you there. Win-win. This is great. This is like really great, right? So the fact that we can't and shouldn't diagnose is a plus. And there's certainly ways to message that. We talk about messaging and marketing and all of that in the program. What I would say to you in this instance with your client, though, is that if they are attached to their diagnosis, then there needs to be a place where you can, through your trust and your belief around diagnoses, allow them to drop it. Because if they're attached to the permanency of their condition and the limitations, and they're attached to the permanency of their restrictions, then it's going to be a very hard road for both of you. So that's really what's in the gap. And you're not going to get her to do that until she trusts you. And once she trusts you, then she gets to trust herself. And once she trusts herself, then you can drop the diagnosis. Then you can get on to doing the work.
Yeah. She's coming from a place where she's starting to respect massage and a craft, where in the past she used to, when I was doing ashiatsu and I showed her a promo video and I was so excited about it, she covered her children's eyes and said that, that it seemed too sensual, because it was a view of somebody using a foot on a client, having the bars above the head, and had all kinds of jabs. And now she's kind of asking me, oh, you worked at a physical therapy office, and I can tell she's interested and asking me things, but there's still this resistance. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, Michelle, resistance is just fear. And it's not about you. So we want to be really clear when we're working as a practitioner that whatever's coming at us, be water on a duck's back.
Yeah. I think it's just personal, because she is family and I do want to help her. And
never personal.
I'm limited. Yeah.
No, you're not. You're fully equipped with everything you need. So you saying you're limited is like her saying she has a diagnosis.
Totally.
Right. And it's not personal. Even when you love someone, it's not personal. It's about them. And if we're really in service, we understand that it's them.
Yeah.
If we want to get childish about it, we make it personal, because then we don't have to actually participate as in service. We get to pout, which I've done until I don't recommend it. Right.
Yeah.
So just remember the mantra. It's never personal. It's never personal. It's never personal. And she's in fear. And so what would you do if you had a little person in front of you, if you had a 4-year-old in front of you who was petrified? Would you make it about you? No, none of us would. Right. So we just get to remember that, right? Like this person, we all have little people inside of us. And so what would we do if the little person was showing their face instead of the adult cynical one, which is just a cover up for a little fearful one, Yeah. So it's not personal. I know it feels like it. It's not. And so to be in service, which is what I hear you asking, to be in service is, how would you serve a little person afraid?
Yeah. Oh, thanks for that.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for bringing that really meaty question. That was really important for all of us. So some new people jumped in. Tiffany, it's nice to see you. Lizbeth, I'm happy you're here. I love that gong. I love that gong. And Christina, can I brag about you for a minute? So Christina graduated a week ago from the mastery program. How do you feel yes, you're muted. How do you feel being out of the nest? You're muted.
So I just got off of a meeting with my colleagues, the other girls. We did the muscles and movement again together, the first one. And it was really interesting looking at it again from this point on. It actually was really helpful in a way to bring it all together. So I'm feeling much more confident than I did last week about what I know and what I can do. So I thank you for that.
So good. Yay. I'm so glad to hear you guys are still meeting and taking each other on. And yeah, it's so awesome. Good. Well, congratulations again. I'm beaming with pride. Okay, loves, how's a question? Who else can I hot seat? Who would like to ask a question about a client or anatomy or anything? Christina? You know what I forgot to do?
One question.
Michelle, I forgot to spotlight you. I'm going to spotlight you, Christina.
Okay. I do have one question. This just came up in the class that we just took, and you probably will be asked this question via email by Michelle.
Okay.
Synergistic and secondary action, are they the same?
Synergistic and secondary action. I love the question. So synergist is, I verbally
Helper.
Yep, synergist helps the main guy. Secondary action, though, is the second action that the main guy has, which could often be a synergistic action. Yeah.
So they could be both. Okay, that's my question.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
What were you guys digging on?
We were just watching, they were just confused on what you meant by why is she saying that one's synergistic and this one's secondary. So then we got on that discussion of the two, what's the difference between the two? And basically we kind of talked through just as you said, like, synergistics are the helper bees, but the prime mover can also have a secondary action, which could be synergistic. So I get it.
Yeah. I wonder what context I said that in.
Well, we were doing hips and booty, so it was along that first module.
Do you remember if it was about a specific joint action?
It might have been glute max and its secondary role. No, glute med or min, its secondary role in one-legged standing. I don't think that's the question. It was either glute max and glute med and min and the synergistic action of maybe the secondary action of the glute max maybe was assistance with the glute med, but I don't think that's right because that's not what it does. I'm going to confuse everybody.
Okay. Well, yeah, when you guys get the question, if it's coming my way, that's great. Post it in the Praetorium. Ask Michelle to post it there.
Yeah, she will. We just talked about it.
Okay, perfect. Awesome.
But it's just it was just the muscles. It was just one thing that I understand it. I understand it now.
Perfect. Do you have another question for me?
I don't have any more questions for you right now.
Okay. Well, I'm going to unspotlight you, but it was so lovely to see you again. I miss seeing you every week. I know it's only been a week.
I know. I do too. It's not normal. I'm like, I need my class.
I know, right? Well, I'm so glad you're here, Christina. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here. All right. Who else has a question? Who else can I support today? Sabine, your hand's up. Awesome. Hi, Scott. Nice to see you. I'll get to you next. Okay. Awesome. Okay, lady.
Yes. Okay,
yes.
So my question is about endometriosis. I work with women and a few of them, so one in particular has had endometriosis, very painful for a large part of her life. And she had the curation done, which is like, they get into the uterus and they clean it all out. And that was about 1.5 years ago. And she was very happy after that. She's someone who's extremely active. Physically, she's like an ectomorph, if that makes any sense. I mean, I don't know if, yeah. So she has like this really lanky structure. She follows a vegan diet. This is as much as I can just give you in brief. And she's kind of getting back the symptoms that used to disturb her before. And she's kind of panicking about it. I take sessions with her, which are very yoga. I mean, I'm a yoga teacher, so I'm like only doing that, and it's all online. She had like relief from symptoms, which are like a fever and a lot of cramping and discomfort in the premenstrual, like 3 days to 4 days running up to her period. And she had a really quiet period like the previous month. This month there was some disturbances, but it was definitely better than her past. And her practice hasn't been like, she didn't have many sessions this month. So I think that the approach of giving her width in her pelvis is through various restive poses is how I'm approaching it. Is kind of giving her some respite. I just wanted to understand from your point of view if there was any input in this area that I could take away.
I'm probably going to disappoint you because I don't have a lot to offer on endometriosis. It's not within my scope. But what I do know about it, I will share. And what I know about it is from a personal perspective. Again, I'm an herbalist, but as we speak here in this forum today, you really can't wear two hats that compete with each other. So, I'm just noticing, is everything okay, guys, in the chat? We're good. How about yeah, okay. So I'm not putting on a professional hat right now. I'm going to give you my personal information, right? From my own personal perspective. What I know about the cycle is a lot like the full moon, right? When we make wishes at the new moon, they don't come to fruition right away. They come to fruition on the 6th full moon later, right? Full cycle. So when we have any disturbances in our cycle, it's from previous behavior, previous nutrition, previous experiences and stressors. So I like what you said when you said this cycle was different than last cycle, and you get to watch for all of that. It's not from what happened just the week before she had her cycle, though. It's usually a 30-day at least buildup, yeah? And the endocrine system is the second most complicated system in the body. We talk about that in my level 1 anatomy course. It is literally involved in every single function, which sometimes gets overlooked or not overlooked, but it gets tricky to piece it all together because every single system has a different set of symptoms. And so we might not recognize that this symptom from this system and that symptom from that system are actually all pointing, yes, exactly. So again, so that's an anatomy perspective. I'm allowed to talk freely on that. So for example, when women drink a lot of coffee, that's an adrenaline surge. That's an adrenal gland. That's their adrenal glands. That's an endocrine function, right? When they also don't get enough sleep, that becomes thyroid, pituitary, pineal even, right? More endocrine function. When they are under physical duress, cortisol, right? So more hormones, more endocrine function. And then 29 days later, when they get their period, they're like, oh my gosh, I have a problem with my uterus. And I would beg to consider that it's more of a lifestyle imbalance than potentially one organ imbalance because of what I know about the endocrine system.
Right. I understand. So I'll look into and try to investigate, think this through with her. Yeah. Thanks.
And
Oh,
good. I'm glad. And sometimes just taking the focus off the actual, symptom, what seems like the culprit, sometimes it can just take the pressure off enough that you get a bigger picture and then insight comes through too. So be open to that with each other.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, my pleasure. All right, Zabine, thank you for coming forward. Scott, I saw your hand up. Do you still have a question? Yeah? All right, let me get you here. I don't think we've met before. It's nice to meet you. I can't hear you, but you're not muted. It's kind of a bummer.
Is that better?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Hi.
Yeah, thanks, Gina. Thanks for putting this on. It's always nice to kind of follow you and hear your thoughts on training.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you for being here.
My question comes, I've been trainer for about 15 years, and it's a bit of a struggle to give a client what they actually need versus what they want. So a client comes in like, I want you to destroy me because I've been eating bad all week. So I want the CrossFit part where I'm going to feel sick. But for me, I'm like, there's so many things that are dysfunction and wrong in them. So I don't know what to kind of to train clients. So obviously I'm like, I need to rebuild them, but they want me to punish them. So I don't know if you have any insight on that. Yeah.
So they want to be punished for not being good to their body?
Well, they're like, oh, I want to lose 20 pounds. I've eaten really bad for the last month. I have all these things. I watch CrossFit. I watch Biggest Losers. They come in first-time clients, but I might do assessment. I'm like, wow, you've got like weakness through like your glute med and TFA, like all these things. So it's a struggle for my mind what to do.
Yeah, I get that, because we want to serve and we want to give them what they want, but we also think we know better, but we don't want to act like we know better, because then we're into this, we're not creating a developed relationship. I get it. Yeah, I feel you on this one for real. So this is what comes to mind for me. I don't know if you were here at the beginning, Scott, but I am also trained as a personal trainer, but I never worked on the floor. And I went into other certifications. Kettlebell certification is the one that I love the most. But again, I never worked on the floor, but I know functional mechanics. So, you know, if I had to make a living, I could probably wing it, but I would never say that I'm you, right? Never. That said, when I work with folks on functional mechanics and alignment, and I put together what I know about those two things to correct their function, they end up getting an incredible workout. And I don't give them workouts. I just said, it's not my street, you know, not my side of the street. And I've had students in my anatomy courses and workshops and things, and clients start, you know, coining phrases like hashtags, like, you know, this is new power yoga, or how come I'm sweating so much? I'm just standing here. Right. And why is this so exhausting? I feel like I need a nap. So there's all kinds of ways. My point is, there's all kinds of ways to give people a full experience from their neurology and changing their brain and their patterns, getting them off of their, you know, mission agenda to pump more cortisol in their body, if that's the last thing they do with their out, you know, before their hour's up with you. There's a lot of ways to create a neurologic pattern, a physical pattern, restore the function that you're recognizing is problematic for them, and also get them to feel like they really worked out. And what we talked about last week, you know, in the formula of like the way to get gains on someone is they must be in a structural aligned neutral position. Otherwise, their lever systems can't fully function and they can't contract enough to get gains. So why not do that? Why not get them back to their optimal alignment and then make them hold those patterns? They will feel like it's hard, especially if they're off track, and you'll be getting, you know, it's like a win-win. Their body will be winning, you'll be getting what you want from them, and they'll be getting, you know, something that feels productive to them, and nobody will be adding more cortisol to the mix. How does that sound?
Oh, it's kind of like reprogramming the brain a little bit. It's like, I'm the expert, so it's like, this is what's best for you, but you're right. Building a bit of trust goes a long way. And obviously getting them in the right pattern, they'll feel good when they leave the gym, not just that hour. So yeah, no, thank you. That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about trust. It's fun how you know, nobody knows that each other are coming, but the conversations we're all of one mind when we get here. We talked about trust at the beginning of our talk today. And you're right, we do need to build trust. And I don't know if I would build trust by saying, I didn't hear you say this, but I wouldn't build trust by even saying, I'm the expert and I know better. I would build trust by saying, I hear you and see you, and I want the same thing for you. And this is how we're going to do it. Right? Like, there's a way to say, I hear you, like, you know, become a unit, become a working unit first, and then dive them into something that they've never had before that will rock their world. Right? That's the kind of work that you know, we do in my program. And it's hard. Christina can probably attest to that. You know, some of the patterns that we do, not only do they work neurologically, but they work the body. And there's no gym equipment involved, because that's part of, you know, restoring function. So there's definitely ways you can do that.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
Does that support you? Does that answer you fully?
Yeah, no, it helps my kind of train of thought. So that's definitely what I wanted to hear. So thank you, Gina. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. My pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks for bringing that question up. Okay, let me see if I can get back to seeing you guys. We have a couple more minutes left. I would love to answer another question if anyone has it. Tiffany and Joan and Madeline and Elizabeth and Pat I see that you're here, but I don't see you. If any of you have a question, feel free to unmute. Okay, good. Just check in the chat. No questions for me. Okay, awesome. Did we get everybody answered today? You've typed a question. Okay, Madeline, let me go back and check the chat. I thought I was just there. All right, Madeline, let me see. Question on emotional distress was for me. Where is your question on emotional distress? What can you talk about with the physical body and emotional distress? That's the question, Madeline. What do you mean by that? Can you unmute by any chance so I can hear you? It might be quicker to discern if I could just get you to chat for a minute. Is it possible for you to unmute and ask your question?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Hello, Gina.
Hi.
Thank you so very, very much for all you do.
Oh, my pleasure.
I don't know if you've heard of Gestalt therapy,
Sure.
where you have the emotions, pain, traumas can be blocked into the body. Can you talk a bit about that? How to release that? Or do you subscribe to that theory? Does it go into the bones, or is it just muscle, or what?
Okay, that's a good question. Well, so first off, I need to preface this because, you know, you're not in training with me. So I just need to make sure that I'm super clear and that it's not assumed that none of us are psychotherapists when we're doing movement and manual work. And I appreciate that you probably all know that. It just needs to be stated. So when we're working with something that we know is emotional or energetic, it's important for us to stay in our lane, right? Because we're not psychotherapists. That said, there's also a lot of discussion and research now that has confirming for us that talk therapy is not as productive as movement, manual, and talk together. So isn't that great that we all get to, you know, blend our tools together? To answer your question about where does the energy get stored in the body, I'll tell you this, when we talk in my training program around the somatic part of the work, I like to give the visual of a Venn diagram that meets physical, emotional, and energetic. And if we can think of a person as a whole with all three of those components, even if our focus is strictly physical, but we know and consider that there's the other two parts, we'll do better for the client. We'll have better results for sure. And so it doesn't mean that there's 33.3% physical, 33.3% emotional, 33.3% energetic. It can be a, you know, lopsided equation, but all three are all present all the time. And that's really the point I'm getting at here. When we're working with someone and we recognize that those three components are all part of the person, it's important to discern which one is the one that we can navigate. That's usually where you're licensed or trained or certified to work. And also which one is most prevalent. You know, which one is the biggest problem, for lack of a better word. There's no problems, but for, you know, the biggest issue that the client is facing. That might not be in our lane. So sometimes we need to refer out for that. And so when you ask Madeline, like, you know, what do we do for it and how do we approach it? Sometimes the approach is to refer out. Sometimes that's the most loving thing to do, to let someone know, I'm not your person, but I want you to have your person. I want you to have the freedom that you're looking for. If on the other hand, it is in your lane and it's not the biggest piece of their pie and it's something that you can navigate, then you want to figure out where is it in the body and what energy work do you do with your physical work that might support it. So the story that I like to use, if some of you are like, what is she talking about? This story might land it. So if you can picture, not you and not a real person, but picture a mom with a toddler or a newborn in the back seat, strapped into the car seat safely, and they're driving innocently down the road. And a semi truck comes barreling towards them and she can see it in their rear view mirror. There's no physical damage yet, right? But there's definitely a chemical exchange that's happening inside her body. There is a surge of stuff going on. And if that unfortunate instance is that truck hits their car and the baby's fine, But if that truck should hit the car, there is a huge emotional and energetic output, even if the mom walks away physically unharmed. If that emotional and energetic injury doesn't get fully resolved, and there's no way it can, by the way, in the moment, because what the brain does with high trauma is it segregates it. It splits it off in the brain because it's too monstrous for us to actually digest all at one time. So the brain has a protective mechanism where it sends it off into different places. When trauma gets sent off, thanks, Michelle, it gets sent off into different places, then that means that it affects different parts of the body. So that mom may end up with, I've had clients like this before, that mom may end up with a stitch in her ribs that a physical person might think is an oblique attachment. A doctor might think is in her head. Yeah, it is. That's exactly where it is. It's a splintered in her head from this emotional energetic exchange that is now manifesting physically months later when she's positive her child is safe and her car is repaired. Right? So what do we do about that? Well, if you have energy work in your training, in your toolbox, you can do energy work. If you don't, you get to refer out for that, because what you're really here to do is be in service and let your client have what they need. And they're trusting you. We're back to trust again. They're trusting you to give them the recommendation, to hear them fully, to know what they need, even if it's not something you can provide, and then to send them to someone who can. And that requires that you have a strong network of providers in your circle. And we talk about that in my program too, because we're no island. There's no practitioner who's the master. We all need each other and we all network together. We call that partnering for a pain-free world in the program. Madeline, does that answer your question? Yes? Okay, great. Awesome. Thanks for bringing that. This is so meaty. You guys are being so thoughtful with the questions that you're bringing and how you're seeing your people and recognizing that there's more under the surface than what they're saying and what they're asking for. And I really appreciate how thoughtful you are in coming to be able to answer that for them and address what they want and deserve. Awesome. So we have just a couple more minutes. Is there any other question that I can support you around? I know for me, sometimes I want to just think about the answer I just heard, but if there's anything else pressing, I'm happy to address it. Anyone have a question today? Any other questions? No, good? Okay, awesome. So again, I'm happy to come back and chat with you guys next week. I love doing this. Love doing this. Awesome, Michelle. Thank you for that. I love doing this. So I'm happy to be here. I will come back again next Tuesday. I'm going to send you guys, is that helpful to you to get the emails, or would you rather, is it helpful to you to get the emails? I'm like so sensitive to getting too many emails in my inbox that it's a constant struggle for me to know when to send an email and when to not send an email. And then I feel like I'm not serving if I don't connect, and I'm over delivering and pissing people off if I fill their inbox. And so there's all that. So I will send you another email. We'll meet again next Tuesday. Please bring your questions, bring your colleagues too. If they're, if they haven't been here before and there's, a colleague and you are talking about something, bring them. Let's all talk. We're all learning from each other. So everyone's welcome. And I will definitely remind you guys next week when we'll be here. And I'll post the link for the replay. Emails help since the time change, right? Okay, Michelle, thank you for that. I'll post the link for the replay in the student lounge so you guys can go ahead and watch that. And if you're not in the student lounge, you can see it on YouTube as well, because we're streaming now on YouTube because we figured out to be smart, let the tech work for us. Okay, awesome, everyone. It's so great to see you. Thank you for showing up here today. Good to see you. Awesome, Lizbeth. It's great to see you. Bye, everybody. I'll see you next week.